Welcome to How You Pictured It, the podcast for creative entrepreneurs ready to grow their business in a way that feels good. Here you'll find actionable tips and tools to create the business and life you pictured. I'm your host, Kate Hyde with Dear Kate Brand Strategy. Let's get started. Before we get started with today's episode about Pinterest, I just wanted to share with you that I am hosting a free masterclass this Friday, March 24th at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, teaching you how to build your brand online and create your DIY website. I would love to have you there. I'm laying out my 3-phase framework to help you get from idea to search engine optimization and launched website in this free masterclass. You can find the link to save your seat in the show notes. Today's guest is Kaitlin McKeeby. She's here to talk about Pinterest and diversity and kind of just about being yourself online as well. I really enjoyed our conversation, and there's some good takeaways with how you can use Pinterest as a photographer. I think that Pinterest is a really great marketing channel that we can add into our list of things. There are a lot of ways that we can use it easily without feeling like we're dedicating our lives to another social media platform by repurposing some of the stuff that we already have out there. I hope you enjoy this conversation. I'm excited to have Kaitlin McKeeby here today. She is a Pinterest expert. Kaitlin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, yeah. I'm Kaitlin. I'm a Pinterest manager, and I really like to serve queer and female entrepreneurs to help them grow sustainably and organically through Pinterest.
How did you get into this?
So I technically kind of started in the online business world around September, October of 2021.
Okay.
I saw TikTok. I'm pretty sure a lot of people know Jessica Hawks. She's like super huge on TikTok about being your own like business owner and being a VA. So that's kind of what sparked the interest. And then I get hyper fixated when I like find stuff interesting. So I just like dove deep down the rabbit hole, figured out everything you could do. And then I saw that you could be a Pinterest manager. Had no idea that was a business. And I was like, this is so much fun.
So cool. All right. So let's talk about Pinterest specifically. What is Pinterest? For people who don't know exactly, they think of it as just a place to put ideas or look for home remodeling things.
Yeah, exactly. I know when, like before I knew you could use it for business, I would always go to it for like recipe inspiration or tattoo ideas. So it's so funny to be on the other side now. Because so you think of it kind of as a social media, but it's really not. It's a visual search engine. And I think that's where the most confusion comes from, because they're like, oh, it's just photos. How can it help market your business? And it's just because it is a search engine. So SEO, keywords, all that stuff really helps. Like it does have social aspects. You can like, you can comment, you can save. And that's kind of where the similarities.
Yeah. So I've been on Pinterest since like when you had to get an invitation to be on Pinterest.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Way, way back when. But let's talk about how photographers are using Pinterest or should be using Pinterest.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm a very big believer in almost any business can find success on Pinterest, but especially photographers. I feel like it's their bread and butter almost. Like it's the perfect place to share your work because it is so visual. So you really aren't having to do too much extra work. Like if you already have all these edited photos, you can easily just optimize them for pin size and repurpose some captions here and there and get your work out there.
Do you find that it's best to like post directly to Pinterest, or do you find like linking from like a blog post, or I know you can even link from Instagram now to Pinterest. How does that, what do you find is best practices for those things?
So Pinterest is very great at being able to bring people to your owned assets, which is another reason why it's so great for photographers. So instead of like hustling on Instagram or TikTok and being like, hey, go check out the link in my bio to go to my website, they can easily go to your website from a pin they find on their feed. Blog post, if you have like an email list that like, if you have like a funnel for an email list, it's perfect for that. So that's why I really love Pinterest and like why I'm always like, hey guys, you should be on Pinterest. It's just one of those things that like really helps bring people to your assets.
Yeah, it's kind of like a magnet versus you having to like throw bait out and
Exactly. And like
hope it
without
works.
extra steps people have to go through.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I started my business, I was very big on blogging, like what to wear sessions. And those photos, like pictures of outfit ideas for family photos, still bring traffic to my site like
That's
10 years
amazing.
later. Yeah. It's wild because like half of those posts are gone now from my blog. Which is a great question too. So what do you do if you have like old pins and the traffic or like the post that they were from is gone now?
Yeah. So I really like to recommend people to do like a quarterly audit. Um, I would do it monthly, but that's just because it's my job. So like if you don't have the time and you're doing it yourself, definitely like once a quarter, go through your pins, or at least I want to say like your pins from the previous quarter. So you're not kind of like digging through a bunch if you do put a lot of pins in a month. Just kind of recheck, especially if you've done website updates or if you know you've moved some things, just check to see if you have broken links.
Okay.
So that way, if somebody does find that pen, like you're saying, and they go to a blog post that doesn't exist anymore, they don't get a little bit frustrated. So you can always, change the link on that pen or even just kind of archive it, not delete it because you never want to delete something fully.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's
And then
always checking.
also you could do like a 301 redirect, right? Like if you have a link that just no longer exists.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because I know I have some that like somebody else pinned it from my site or it's like, you know, deep pinned. And where I can't change anything on the actual pin because it's somebody else's pin. So, I do like a 301 redirect to a relevant post that's similar, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. That's perfect, actually.
Yeah. 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 Let's talk about the different kinds of pins because I know there are a lot.
There are.
Tell me about what they are and which ones are trending as the best option to use right now.
Okay. Yeah. So I know like the big hot topic is idea pins. I know Pinterest like debuted them, I think March or May of 2021. And it was just like their update and rebrand of their story pins. And I really like idea pins. They're kind of like, I don't say controversial, but some people really don't like to suggest using them because you can't really link back to anything except for like products, or you can do affiliate marketing with them now.
Okay.
But they're a great visibility tool because you can't link too much on them. It gets people to stay on Pinterest for longer. So that's why Pinterest pushes them out a little bit more.
Okay.
So if one of your goals is visibility, I definitely suggest utilizing idea pins within your strategy. I wouldn't say that's like your whole strategy because you do want to bring people back to your places with links, but I really like idea pins. I think they're fun. They're a great way to repurpose like Reels or TikTok.
Okay.
And then going into video pins, which is kind of just like a standard pin, but video is another way you can repurpose Reels or TikToks, but you can actually link back to your socials or your website, a funnel that you have. So those are great too. And then of course your standard pin with the graphics or images are always great. That's kind of like the meat of what everybody's strategy should be.
Right.
So you can get, those people back to your sites and stuff. And within all of that, there's also like carousel and collage pins.
Oh, okay. I don't know that I knew that.
So when I think of carousel pins, I think of like idea pins.
Okay.
But, there's actually like a separate thing. So if you're going to create them on Pinterest, if you like go to create a pin, and you throw out multiple images at once, it'll ask you if you want to create a collage or if you want to create a carousel. I know, right?
I did not know that.
So that's a super fun way especially to reuse photos from a shoot, and it still kind of mark as a fresh pin because it's a different format. Yeah. And you can still add links with those, which is also great.
So cool. So I think one of my big questions with Pinterest is, so I see it as a great place to get like national traffic, but how do you get like local traffic? Do people specifically look for location on Pinterest or is it more broad than?
So it's both, but you can definitely target local people, especially within your like profile name. If you put, your name, your business, and then you also add your location, that helps a lot with SEO and getting the right people to find you, especially if they're looking for location-based businesses, and throwing it in your bio. That also helps as well.
Do you have any tips for optimizing our bios?
Oh, absolutely. So I like to think of your bio as, a little introduction, say what you do, who you are, and what you stand for. Your bio is also a great way to kind of add in some keywords without it feeling spammy. So for me, like I'll put, I'm Kaitlin, I'm a Pinterest manager. This is who I serve and this is what I believe in. And I'll put here, you'll find tips on keyword, 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 keyword.
Okay.
So that helps a lot with SEO, and it gives people some of your personality, which I think is really important.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about personality and like identifying what makes you unique and like how that's important for Pinterest.
Yeah. So I do, and I also suggest anybody that's starting their optimization journey, or even like a quarterly audit within their account, doing market research on Pinterest within your niche, seeing kind of what's working within your niche. And then also if you offer something that's not really being put out there, if that makes sense. So I had a client who had an offer specifically for celebrating yourself as a queer person. And that's not really something that I've seen a lot about, with like a whole photo shoot and everything. And so I was like, this is amazing. This is important. We should definitely put a lot of emphasis on this, because there's nothing like this on Pinterest. And it's a lot easier to stand out, but it's also important because we need more of that, in the online space.
Yeah. That diversity.
Yeah.
How can we bring more diversity to Pinterest?
I think it's always going to be one of those things where it's going to be hard to take that step if you're definitely somebody that needs to see somebody else do it. But I think I had a post about this where it's just like, nothing changes if nothing changes. And if you do have slightly more confidence than somebody else, like put yourself out there, be that leader for everybody else. Because I know, especially within the photography industry on Pinterest, and especially if you're looking up like a couple photos, weddings, elopements on there, it's still, at least from what you can see, it's very straight, very white. So we're just trying to, at least that's one of my goals, is trying to get more diversity on a Pinterest. Yeah.
On the platform. Yeah. So I know as photographers, it can be tricky, like, especially like my clientele is typically straight and white, just because of where I live. And I do want to show more diversity in my portfolio. So sometimes I will do like a model call, or, those times that I do have a client that is outside of that, that is a little more diverse. I make sure that their photos are shared everywhere. Because it is important for me to show different families, different types of love, just different people. The whole world is so beautiful, and being able to photograph everyone is such a privilege.
Yeah. And I think that also goes back to, I don't want to say like if somebody's lacking that, it's not necessarily on purpose. It's just because I feel like it's still, when I say the norm, I'm saying the norm in quotes, like the norm for like, white straight people to be featured. And I think it's also people are looking for their own people, so they know that they feel, so that they're safe.
Yeah.
So I know it's very important for like queer people to find queer photographers, but I do follow like a bunch of queer photographers and just queer people within the creative industry who do like run workshops, or they even have like free resources for allies to like kind of like refocus their language or whatever it is, to signal to people that they are a safe space. And that that they're accepting of everybody, and it's not just like, I only cater to the straight and white people.
Yeah. And that can be so tricky too. Like, and I know now that you're saying that, I'm like, oh, let me think about the copy on my website. It talks about mom and dad all of the time. So like thinking through that and how you can, really just like show that you're welcoming to all people is super important, through our copy and through our images.
Yeah, and it's so ingrained. So like we're all unlearning and relearning and just trying to be better people. And I think as long as you're making that effort and you're not causing harm intentionally,
Yeah.
and just moving towards moving in the right direction, I think is just the most important part.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. Okay. I'm going to circle back a little bit to Pinterest.
Oh yeah.
Something that I notice is a lot of the times we're just pinning our work to Pinterest as photographers, just our photos. What other things could we be pinning? Like, for example, that like what to wear kind of post, or what other blog or content topics would you suggest for photographers to get into Pinterest? So you've got a website for your small business, but you're not really sure if it's working. I've got a brand new free resource that gives you a grade for your website, like old school report card. It's a super easy to use checklist. You'll go through, answer questions, and at the end, you'll get a grade for each page of your site, plus your site overall. And you'll also get next steps to what you need to do to make your website convert and connect with your dream clients. So you have a site that sells your services for you, and you can get back to life just how you pictured it. Head to dearkatebrandstrategy.com/report card to get that free resource now.
Yeah. So I know blogs are like another part of, like, let's say Pinterest is the bread and blogs are like the butter for photographers. I know they're very huge because you can talk about like a whole session that you did and be able to share all that information, but then you can also talk about any tips or tricks that you have. I know like it's always great, like if you have a certain way of doing something, like your process or like how you make people feel comfortable behind the camera, that's a great thing to go into, kind of show your personality, but also your process.
Yeah.
And definitely don't like forget to, and I do this too, like I'm always like Pinterest, 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 but like also let people see you and like get to know you a little bit more. So just like a few personal posts here and there, like get to know more about the photographer or
Yeah.
any stories that you have. Like if you were on the other side of the camera and like maybe there was something that you didn't really like and that you would change without not like necessarily calling someone out, but just like your perspective.
Yeah. And you touched a bit on research on Pinterest, like researching what's kind of trending in your niche. How do you figure that out? Where do you research?
Yeah. So the first thing I do is I'll kind of throw in like the like main keywords that I think are relevant to this person's business, and just into the general search bar to see kind of what is within the top 10 or 20 pins, just to see like, is there something about the graphics? Are they hitting certain keywords? Why are they doing so well?
Okay. And you mean on Pinterest, in the search bar on Pinterest? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, a great way to do trends, of course, is to go within the trends under analytics. And that's a great, like if you have a content topic that you're thinking of, or if you have some keywords that you're not sure of, trends is a great place to like throw those in and see how they're currently performing. If they
where do you find that?
So it is, like if you're on the main page, if you click on analytics, it'll be under there. It should just say trends.
Okay.
And they don't, it's kind of hidden, I guess.
Okay.
Because when you think of trends, you don't really think of analytics, but like once you get there, it makes sense because it shows you kind of like the trending graph, like where it spikes, how it's performing. So that's cool. Another great place to like do keyword research, but also like content research as well if you're kind of stuck on what to post.
That's a great suggestion. I'll have to check that out. I don't know that I knew that even existed either. So
yeah,
there's so many things that, I mean, like I said, I've been on Pinterest for a really long time and it has changed and grown so much over the years, from where it started. It used to just be all static pins and they were all one size. And
Yeah.
now everything is quite a bit different. Going back to idea pins. So let's talk about content that's like just natively made for Pinterest with idea pins particularly. How would you suggest using those?
So that is a great question because you don't necessarily have to create content just for Pinterest, even
Okay.
with idea pins. I mean, you definitely can. There's nothing stopping you. That's also a great
Okay.
way to get more stuff out there. I know before I mentioned you can easily repurpose Reels and TikToks for idea pins. Maybe
Okay.
they aren't getting as much reach on Instagram or TikTok like you thought they would, and you throw it on Pinterest and it could hit a wider audience. For an example, I had like a video that did pretty well on TikTok, not as well on Instagram. And then I put it as an idea pin on Pinterest. And within 2 hours, it had like 1.5 thousand impressions.
Okay. And is that like, do you suggest like the more like talking to the camera ones or like pointing out words or, like something where you're lip syncing to a trending audio? What kind of performs best on Pinterest?
So that one was kind of like a B-roll with, it did have value within the caption, but the text on the screen was just kind of like, oh, why are me wondering why people aren't on Pinterest? And then like I
Okay.
pointed out like 3 great things about it. But I also, a lot of ones that come up on my feed are like a lot of talking to the camera videos.
Okay.
So I think with like Instagram and TikTok, at least from what I'm seeing, the kind of videos doesn't necessarily, I think they're all performing pretty well.
Okay.
I think it just depends on your account. Everyone's account is going to be different, like what your audience tends to like, gravitate towards more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's always a great thing to look at. Like I think at the end of the month, look at your analytics, seeing what's working, what's not, and what can you amplify.
So for somebody that maybe wanted to really take a deep dive and like kind of go all in on Pinterest as a strategy and say you have like 30 days to test it out, what would you suggest they do?
So always lay your foundations. You want to know what your like top 3 business goals are and what goal you're trying to achieve with Pinterest, whether it's brand awareness or website traffic. Maybe you're trying to sell more of your products. So really understanding what your goal is going to be your first step. And then the next step for me that I like to tell people is always doing the research, like getting all of that out of the way, the market research, I like to call it community research. It's typically called like competitor research.
Yeah.
And also your keyword research and getting all of, all of your areas optimized. And that's a great foundation. So once you are starting to figure out like what your pin schedule is like, you already have like that strong foundation.
And what typically do you suggest for a pin schedule? Obviously, it's going to vary by person, but like how often should we be pinning to Pinterest? And also, should we be pinning other people's content to boards? And how does that work?
Yeah, definitely. So I know repinning was a big thing, I want to say a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily terrible. Like if you do get inspired by other people's work, I'm not going to be like, you can't do that. But it is very important to have fresh pins. Pinterest, they're very transparent about what they like to see from their creators. So they're very big on fresh pins. And consistency is a very big thing for success on Pinterest.
Okay.
And so that's like pinning every day, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming. I know like thinking like content creation every day, oh my God, that's terrible. But with Pinterest, because, like the whole reason I love Pinterest is because you can have ease with your marketing because it's a very big a great platform to repurpose what you have already created.
Okay.
So you don't have to necessarily create more content just for Pinterest to pin every day. And when I say pin every day, I'm not saying like you need to do like 10 fresh pins a day. Like if you have that content and if that's something you can sustain, definitely go for it and see if that works for your account. but sustainability is also a big thing for Pinterest. Like, find a schedule that you can commit to. So
Okay.
if you're definitely new to it within these first 30 days, like try one fresh pin a day. And definitely if you already batch your content, like work Pinterest into that and like schedule out.
Okay.
So for me, I personally use Tailwind. I know that's like the big one for Pinterest.
Yeah.
And if you don't have Tailwind, if you're new to it and you're kind of like, this is too much to learn another thing, Pinterest has a native scheduler in it.
Okay.
You can only pin up to 2 weeks, but that is a great starting point if you're new to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then,
that's helpful. I didn't know that Pinterest had scheduling.
yeah, and you can't schedule idea pins.
Okay.
I want to say, like, I'm in like a little group and somebody was like, oh, you can schedule idea pins now. But I think they're like rolling that out to certain people.
Okay.
Because
Like
I don't have that option yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do like one pin a day to get used to it. Because I also see like a lot of accounts, especially photographers, because y'all do have a lot of like fresh content from all your sessions. I see a lot of people have a great amount of success with just 2 to 3 fresh pins per day.
Okay.
So it really doesn't have to be a lot if you don't want it to be.
Okay. And then how many idea pins would you suggest in a week?
So that goes back to your goals. So for me, I'm kind of like challenging myself to do like 2 to 3 idea pins per week, but that's just because I'm focused on awareness. So if you are in those building stages, I would say aim for like 1 to 2 a week.
Okay.
And then like if you're already pretty established, you can play around with it if you want. I would say at least like maybe 2 a month.
Okay.
Just to like get that visibility out there. And then again, it's just always going back to your analytics and seeing what's working for your account.
Yeah. Yeah. With pinning from your blog, would you go back to like really old posts and start pinning those too? Or like once it's pinned and don't do it again.
So you can go back and blog older posts, especially if it's been a while and there was one that performed really well. All you would have to do for it to be marked as a fresh pin is to create just a new graphic for it.
Okay.
And I know the advice out there for a while was like, oh, you just really need to change the colors and the fonts a little bit, but Pinterest is getting a little bit smarter. So
yeah,
they still might see that as a repin. So you don't have to completely overhaul your pin designs, but maybe just like switch it up a little bit, add like a few different like little elements to your graphic, freshen it up. And if you had posts that performed really well and you want to recirculate them, you can definitely do that.
Okay. And then, so talking about graphics, do graphics perform better, like with words and colors and text over top of images more than just like a straight image if we're just wanting to show our work?
I think for photographers, I guess it depends on like what your graphics are going to be about. But photos are always going to be like super popular because they're just easier to like see your work already and be like, oh, I really resonate with this or this caught my eye. And especially because with photographers having all those photos, you're not really having to create another step for yourself and create more like more graphics and stuff.
Yeah.
If you don't have to. I mean, and if you want to, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, especially if you're doing graphics on Instagram. I like if you use Canva, I like to always tell people to, when you're saving whatever graphics you're making for Instagram, just copy and resize it as a Pinterest bin so you have it there if you want to use it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to like create something new.
Yeah. Perfect. Is there anything else that you want to share, Kaitlin, about Pinterest for photographers, that diversity or, finding what makes you unique and how that's important for Pinterest?
Yeah, I think a lot of it just always goes back to, I guess, wanting a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Because I know when I was talking to one of my clients, they wanted to get on Pinterest for a while, but they didn't really, one, know how, but two, they weren't finding somebody that resonated with like their branding or kind of like who they were, and they didn't want somebody to water them down just to fit in on Pinterest. And I was like, no, that's not what we're doing. We're standing out on Pinterest because we're so different.
Right.
And I think I think that's just something people need to remember. Like it's okay to be different. It's okay to not like be the norm, quote
Yeah.
unquote, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, this is just from my personal experience. I was looking at websites for photographers the other day, and the thing that I noticed is like my kids are getting older now. They're 8, 10, and 12, and photographers show toddlers and little kids.
Me
And
too.
it's because that's who's hiring photographers most of the time. But um, like it made it hard for me to want to hire somebody that doesn't show that they have experience with a family like mine. So there's just another thought on that diversity, showing that you can reach different levels with your work, and
Absolutely.
help different people is super important. And I cannot imagine really what it would be like if like I had never been able to see myself in photos on Pinterest. That's hard.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, I get on my soapbox a lot about that. And like, even me, like I'm white, so I never have to worry about not seeing like somebody that looks like me on there. But I know that's a big thing, especially for people, within the queer community who don't necessarily like present the same as somebody else. So, like me, I'm very femme, so like I don't, I never find like it's not a hard time for me to find somebody that like looks like me or I can
Yeah.
resonate with on Pinterest. So it's just kind of all about my priority is building that community on Pinterest as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kaitlin, how can we find you? How do you help people? How can you help photographers?
Yeah. So I am on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest. I'm at Kaitlin McKeeby. And then for TikTok, I'm at It's Kaitlin M. But I also just have my website, like KaitlinM.com, that has all the links, makes it a lot easier. Right now, I am actually in the last week of a 3-week Pinterest challenge that I'm running. It's free, kind of just a great like starting point if you don't really know what to do on Pinterest, if you don't know how to use it for marketing, and you want to learn a little bit more, but you just don't either have the means or necessarily want to do one-on-one services yet. I'm currently in the process of making it passive. So once this week is over, people can still join it and it'll still make sense for them.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, then I also have my one-on-one services.
Okay, very cool. All right, Kaitlin, thank you so much for joining me. I enjoyed our conversation today, and I think it's going to help a lot of people get started on Pinterest or really optimize their use of Pinterest. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
Wonderful.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation about Pinterest and how it can help you grow as a photographer. We did talk a little bit about blogging here, and I do want to share with you a couple of resources. First is my Blogging for Photographers freebie. I will make sure that's linked in the show notes. That will help you get started blogging, which is a great way to share to Pinterest and other social media platforms. You can repurpose that content and share directly to Pinterest and get some more traffic running to your website, which is always a big thing. And then second is a freebie that I have coming up on Friday, a free webinar teaching you the roadmap to DIYing your website. This is just a free class at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, Friday, March. At 10 a.m. Friday, March 24th. You'll find the link to that in the show notes as well. It is a great resource for you if you are either A, DIYing your website completely, or B, hiring somebody out to complete your website for you. Your website is really the heart of your business, and we want to make sure that we get a clear message going, clear understanding and speak. Your website is really the heart of your business, and we want to make sure that we get a clear message so that your dream clients can find you and fall in love with you. I would love to see you there. You can find the link for that again in the show notes, and I will talk to you soon.